Hello and welcome. I am Vivian King. I'm a board member of Revo, and I would like to welcome you all to the first in a series of articles we're running on the reopening in the UK following our lockdowns, looking at what we've learned from last year and what's going to be different this year. I'm joined today by Carl Foreman. Carl, welcome. Carl is Managing Director of PM&U, a proactive property management company covering all asset classes in the UK. Carl has over 20 years experience in the retail and property management industries and has worked for some of the biggest global real estate firms in a number of different capacities. Carl was also instrumental in the publication of a reopening guide that Revo produced last year. And he also took part in 2 webinars that we ran on reopening last year, along with other Revo members, Alison Hodkinson, Graham Williams, Ray Holdstock, Tim Rylance, Melanie Palmer and Phil Grew. Carl, I'm very glad to welcome you back to this conversation.
Thanks. Thank you, Vivian.
So reflecting on 2020, what have we learned from that experience about reopening, Carl?
Well, I think it's been a once-in-a-lifetime experience, or what we thought was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience of closing shopping centres and retail parks. It's actually happened 3 or 4 times in the last 12 months. So actually, I think we've become quite adept at closing down our schemes and reopening them, and also keeping them open for non-essential retailers.
That's good to hear. So when we were preparing the report last year and when we were running our webinars, there was a strong focus on practical things, hygiene of course, but also communication was paramount. So tell me, what worked well from what we were preparing and what didn't work so well?
With the reopening of lockdown 1, no one really knew what to expect. The retailers, the government, nor the owners of the schemes. And as such, it was definitely a belt and braces approach, which whilst correct, in hindsight probably cost a lot of businesses a lot of money that didn't necessarily need to be spent. Overall though, I think the industry as a whole has coped remarkably well under the circumstances, or adapted as quickly as it has actually been able to.
The following article after this one will involve CACI presenting on a report that they've recently published, preparing for the new consumer reality. It's based on a survey that they carried out. Without wishing to do a spoiler on what it says, what do you draw from the findings? Because I know that you've read it.
Without obviously giving away too much, there's a definite desire for people to get out and spend money, but they will only do so if they feel safe. The way that people work, play, shop, and for that matter of fact, work has changed. And there's been a huge increase in people's awareness of social good causes. So all of these factors are really going to influence where a customer chooses to shop, how they choose to shop, and more importantly, what they actually choose to spend their money on. So hopefully that hasn't given away too much.
I hope not. I don't think so. I don't think so. There's plenty more in there, which is fascinating. So lockdown is drawing to a close. Across the UK over the coming weeks. What's different, do you think, about this reopening compared to the previous 2?
I think that we've done it before and we know what to expect. I think that a lot has been learned from the previous 2, in some cases, even 3 lockdowns. And actually, a lot of it's become the norm when it comes to reopenings.
So what would your approach be now to reopening, and perhaps what would you advise others to do and not to do?
I think the most important part, Vivian, is we've got to trust our site teams, we've got to trust the public, we've got to trust our retailers to be able to make the best decisions. I honestly don't believe that we need to go overboard in preparations, but we do need to make sure that people feel welcome and safe and want to come back and shop.
So Carl, what's your approach to managing reopening and what would you advise others to do and not to do?
Well, I think, Vivian, that the most important part is that we need to trust our site teams, we need to trust the public, and we need to more importantly trust the retailers as well to make the best decisions. I honestly don't think that we have to go overboard in our preparations. As I said, we've been there before, but the most important part is to make sure that people feel welcome, safe, and that they want to come back and actually spend their money and shop.
Okay, so we've all got used to working online and working remotely and communicating in the way we're communicating now. What role does digital have to play in the communication that we want to employ for reopening and building confidence?
Digital's probably become the most important bit of communication in the last year. People who have never been online for web calls and things are suddenly all experts at how to do it. But digital communication is probably one of the most effective ways that you can talk to your retailers and customers in a quick and friendly manner, whether it's through communicating on WhatsApp groups, various mail communication software, or even via the websites. Every little counts to making the visit to the retail venue easier and more comfortable.
Last year, we were prompted to publish the guidance because I think it's fair to say there were a few gaps in government guidance and regulations, and we weren't quite sure what we should be doing. Do you feel more confident this time about what the rules are?
I don't think that you can really account for every situation with a set of rules and regulations. I just think it's impossible to do so. So for me, the best we can do is really rely on informed decisions that ensure any environment is safe and secure. I mean, the government regulations, for example, at the moment don't state anything around track and trace, nor, for example, how do you deal with takeaways inside a shopping centre once they've been bought. So for me, I would just make sure that until the 17th of May, when the government reviews its position on social distancing, etc., we should probably continue to use track and trace if we offer any form of common area seating. And this would include your food courts, or food halls, for example, where people may sit after having bought a takeaway. Alternatively, the rules that are going to be in place now say that if you are going to sit down for an indoor meal, it has to be table service. And that's what centres are going to have to do otherwise, which I'm not quite sure we've necessarily got the staff to be able to do it. But again, as I said, you've got to make the most informed decisions that you can make under the circumstances.
Last year, we know how important it was for centre owners to be working with occupiers. How's that going to work this time, given that different occupiers are on different timetables for reopening?
Look, you're a partnership. There's no question about it. You can't work independently. It's all about collaborative working, and we have to work hand in glove with our tenants. A lot of them are going to need our guidance because they are independents and may not necessarily know all the rules and regulations. So communication is just going to be the most paramount thing that you can do, especially around things like trading hours, when the car parks will be open, when they're going to close, etc. Because different parts of the economy, as you quite rightly say, are going to be opening at different times, and the centres will have to adapt as we go with those dates.
Thinking about service charges for a moment. Service charges had their problems in 2020. In fact, Revo has a webinar upcoming on the very topic. Tell me, how have you been managing service charges over this period?
I think on the whole, property management teams have actually been superb in managing their costs through COVID in 2020 and again into 2021. I think on average, there have probably been some fairly substantial savings that have been achieved through last year. And this year's budgets, from what I understand from speaking to colleagues, they are less than last year's non-COVID budgets, probably by between 5 and 10%. So overall, I think that the property management industry has really done a great job on it. There's no question there are problems that are still out there, and there will be some severe pressure going forward, because even though we've made these substantial savings of, say, 20-25% through the COVID year, our collection stats aren't reflecting on that. So we've still got a gap between what has actually been collected and what has been managed to save. So I think we're in for a difficult year, but bottom line is I think that everybody has certainly played their part, whether it is the management teams, whether it's the soft services teams. I really do think they've played their part very well during the year.
That's really good to hear. So we wrote Getting Ahead without any of the experience that we've had since. We wrote about reopening and what it should involve based on the knowledge we had back in the spring last year. If we were writing it again now, Carl, what would be different?
wouldn't do very much that is different. If you read through the guide, it is a fairly standard guide. It can be used at any time. I think the one thing that I would change would be certainly to suggest that people take just a little bit more time to decide how important an issue is and how long it may last for. The 2-meter rule is a classic example of that, or the stickers that everybody had on the floor. And therefore, before committing large amounts of money to implement those changes, they actually decide whether they are really, really going to be needed and how long they're going to be there for.
Good advice, Carl, thank you. And that brings us to a close. So thank you, Carl, very much indeed for those sage words and great advice. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining our panel. We've just hit the 1-year anniversary since we first went into lockdown last March. We're obviously going to see some easing of restrictions over the next couple of weeks as we come out of lockdown. I think it's a good point for us to sit down and discuss how we see consumer behaviour influencing multiple sectors in our society. We're going to be discussing a number of topics today, specifically around property, retail, leisure, and how we think that the last 12 months will impact the next 12 months, and I guess the longer term destinies of space, place, and how we use it. So first of all, I'm just going to show you a couple of our key findings from our most recent COVID consumer survey. So this is the 5th one that we've done. We've basically every couple of months tested the national mood and asked a couple of questions around attitudes, behaviours, intent to spend, comfort levels around venues, etc. So what we found was that 86% of people wanted to get the vaccine. We saw that 74% of consumers' finances had not been affected, so possibly the depth of this recession is not as acute as we thought it would be, and consumer confidence hasn't been completely shattered. So 30% of people wanted to revisit a big life event they'd been putting off, so this includes moving house, having a baby, getting married, buying a car. Lots of things that people didn't do last year because they were a bit nervous possibly and weren't sure what their finances would look like. We might see this explosion of spend as a result on a lot of key sectors. Just tying back in with that economic point, we saw those on reduced salaries halved in lockdown 3 versus lockdown 1, which is really positive and shows that actually the economy wasn't wavering as much as it was in the first lockdown. And then finally, people are planning on going on holiday. 15% of people want to go on an extravagant holiday to make up for possibly not going on a holiday last year. So bringing all this together, what we felt as a result was actually you've got quite a big bubble of pent-up demand that we might see explode over the next 12 months. And then finally, I just wanted to show you this week's COVID mobility tracker. So CACI have been producing these, basically demonstrating how much people are moving around compared to a pre-COVID base. So what we saw this week was actually movement was 75% of pre-COVID levels, which actually, whilst it sounds low, it's the highest it's been in 5 months. It's just suggesting that people are ready to go out. I think there's a couple of things tying in with that. The weather's got better. We're all anticipating lockdown restrictions easing even further going forward, and also possibly a bit of lockdown fatigue, which we did see in the last lockdown.
We're not returning to the trends that we saw in 2019, the figures that we saw pre-pandemic. Online behaviour has significantly jumped on. We saw previously it was heavily concentrated in younger shoppers in urban areas where you saw the highest levels of online shopping. And what the pandemic has done is effectively made online shopping multi-generational. There's almost a bit of an Amazon fatigue as well. I think people are almost sick of having constant parcels coming through the door, and there is still a bit of a desire to return to in-store shopping. So I think there is opportunity and scope and headroom for physical retail to start to capture that online market share back, but it's just being very conscious of the store, and the relationship between store and online has significantly changed.
It's all around creating an experience in the environment in the store to encourage people back to go shopping. It's those experiences that people will have really missed over last year. Even people who go shopping as a social activity or as a family activity, they're the trips and they're the missions that people have missed out on, and I think will come back very quickly.
We've seen from a lot of our other research that some of the younger generations have been the most keen to get back into the shops when they've reopened, to get back into restaurants and bars, and some of those in more rural areas or older populations have been a bit more reserved, and I imagine that will continue this year in terms of that transition when people are starting to get back to engaging with the likes of retail.
From speaking to people, especially those who are slightly older and also more cautious around COVID risks, etc., they're saying that they are really looking forward to going back shopping, and there's definitely that consensus amongst the research we've done that they are desperate to go back. However, I think in the short term they're still going to be slightly nervous. So I think COVID safety measures are key, especially in the short term. People haven't had that social interaction or used to being in busy shops, etc., and that needs to be managed. I also think there is a role to play for the landlords and the shopping centres, as well as the individual shops, around creating that environment.
You look at Boohoo and their scandal with their Leicester supply chain. You saw their share price drop by almost 50% over July, almost in one day in July, and it really hits home how much it matters, not from just a consumer perspective, but also from the city's perspective.
I think it's really important for brands to understand that consumers are becoming more ethically conscious and more aware of their surroundings. We take a brand like Brewdog, who's really, emphasizing that point, and I think that's a great example of knowing your audience, and effective marketing as well. Translating that to your consumer. I
think a lot of the research that we've been doing has been showing that. So again, there's certain generations that are really interested in that, and it's almost polarized as well. Some of the younger generations that are coming through are actually really focused on that, and given that they're going to be in 10 years' time, whatever they've got to spend in their wallet is going to be a lot bigger. They're going to be quite a significant consumer base for a lot of brands. Actually, to Matt's point around the longer term sort of implications of investing in this and making sure that brands have that right ethical values and that they're really showcasing it, is potentially going to have quite a significant impact on a brand's success in the long run. What's been really interesting about the research that we've done and the recent results that came out of some of the tracking data is that it looks like people are expecting to be back in the office about 2.8 to sort of 3 days a week. So that completely transforms. Typically everyone was in 5 days a week. It was pretty rare if you weren't. But in terms of the physical office space, I suppose if you're condensing your time with your colleagues into 3 days, what you want from that time in the office is going to change. You're going to be trying to focus that meeting time, social time, collaboration time within those 3 days. And actually, when you're at home, it's a bit more of that, get your head down and focus. So it's making sure that actually you've not got an office that's just full ceiling with the desks, and actually you've got those breakout spaces or those meeting rooms to be able to actually all get together as a project team or various sort of working groups and actually have that collaboration time. So I think the office setup is going to have to flex based on those evolving requirements.
Do you think the offer around more residential areas in cities will change? As you said that before, like areas of office hubs, they're going to have to change the F&B offer. Do we think that some of that F&B kind of grab and go stuff will start moving more towards the suburban areas or residential areas?
I think if it's following that convenient, I need to pop out for a quick lunch trip, then I would definitely say yes. And I can imagine, for example, Pret being a large example of a grab and go caterer that is on the corner of most workplaces, particularly in London. Possibly do they now look at local neighbourhoods instead and try and reshift their strategy? I don't think it's out of the question that lots of brands would start doing that.
I think it will be divided. There are always going to be the people who want to live in a city. People like to be in a big hub. They like to be near bars and restaurants, and they're not going to be staying closed forever. On the flip side, I have a lot of people that I know, similar life position to me, who are already looking at houses outside of London, but they're just those people who appreciate the fact that they want a whole house, they don't want a flat, and they want a garden. And I think it's just in terms of consumer preference, how that's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be the mass exodus that we were originally expecting at the start. Despite that, I do think those big blocks of new build flats with no outdoor space, they're going to struggle to sell over the next year for sure. And I think it's down to developers of those schemes and properties to really think about how that space can be maximised.
If you do have a look for a place in London now, you can get so much more for your money compared to compared to where I currently live, for example. And you can just see that there's that huge gap in demand at the moment, meaning that you've got landlords saying, we'll give you this room without having to give a deposit, for example, or cash rewards, which is just completely unrecognisable to where we were 5 years ago, where the landlords were definitely the ones in the power seat.
As an example, we've seen across a lot of closures of the Debenhams portfolio, a lot of those stores are now turning into leisure units or flexi working spaces or food halls. We don't have to replace retail for retail. It's all around creating that environment and being creative. If you can't get someone in, use that space in the meantime for a community hub or something that's beneficial for the people who are walking past and make them feel included, and creating that inclusive space.
I know, Matt, you've been spending a lot of time recently looking at sort of the economics behind that part of that aspect of filling retail with, filling space out with something that used to pay, well, maybe not in Debenhams' case, but decent rents, and moving to things like the new performance lease model, for example, allows you to have that shared risk with the tenant themselves. They have a reduced passing base rent, and then the rest of it's tied on their turnover, plus potentially the footfall that you can deliver, the bringing online to play as well. So
I think arguably the property and sector has been very rigid, and I think COVID has forced the sector to become more proactive in the way that the industry works, whether that's the relationship with landlords and retailers, or other factors. And I think it is really important for the sector to really be more collaborative going forward.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. That was a really interesting discussion. I hope everyone that potentially watched also found it interesting. If you found anything relevant to you, we've got lots of information on our CACI website. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you found the highlights from the webinar discussion and conclusions that CACI brought to us valuable. We're now going over to Mark Garman-Jones from Savills. Mark is in Barnet talking to us about market trends in the retail property sector.
Hi there, I'm Mark Garman-Jones from Savills. I'm Head of Shopping Centre and Retail Investment as well as repurposing. We're here today at the Spires in Barnet ahead of lockdown easing. As we have seen the easing, we've seen an increasing level of investment demand into the retail sector, far greater than we saw in 2020, and a number of deals already happening in the market or under offer is greatly increasing. And that reflects the confidence both in the UK, but hopefully for the recurrence and development of the retail sector in the UK. We're actually handling the sale of the Spires here on behalf of clients which is in the market at the moment, and it's a great example of the demand there is for this type of product. Here we are with a food store Waitrose anchored scheme, a good essential lineup, but also the opportunity in the medium term for significant repurposing and regeneration to create a variety of mixed uses right across the 5 acres that we have here. In 2020, we just saw 5 transactions over £20 million, but already this year we've seen clear evidence from the sales that we're handling and the wider market that there is greater demand in that £20 million plus market with significant competitive bidding in the region of £50 million assets. This can only be encouraging for the inward investment that we're seeing. Many investors are really focused on 4 fundamentals of the market. It is this essential food store anchored scheme, it is that repurposing opportunity, it is that very prime super regional scheme, and it's those designer outlets which are the purest form of retail that we have. Some of the most active investors that we've seen have included family offices, international investors and UK propcos, as well as seeing that positive statement from councils investing in their town centres for long-term regeneration. We're now seeing increasing levels of demand from private equity investors as they struggle to find the returns elsewhere in the market, particularly within the retail warehousing sector.
We're now going to hear from Howard Everson from Hammerson. Howard is at Brent Cross and he's going to explain how Hammerson have put their centres to good use during the pandemic.
Hello, I am Howard Everson. I'm the Operations Director for the UK and Ireland for Hammerson, and welcome to Brent Cross, our retail destination up in North London. Now, we are only a couple of weeks away from the opening of non-essential retail in England, with Scotland just a couple of weeks behind, all going well. But one of the things that we do know about all of these different lockdowns is that each one has been a little bit different. So as we come out of lockdown 3, it is going to be all about testing and vaccinations. So what does that mean for shopping centre owners and property owners? Well, here at Brent Cross, we've opened a testing centre, and Ollie from Express Test is going to tell us a little bit more about this. So, Ollie, I can get a free NHS test for my kids, or if I want one. So why would we need another testing centre, and why would I pay for it?
So Express Tests offer PCR tests that allow you to travel. So when you get to the airport, an NHS test will not allow you to board a train or board a plane when you want to go abroad. So you will need a travel certificate, which you'll only get if you book an Express Test or another private provider, which shows your passport number, the time you got the test and the time your test was resulted. And that's a PCR test that allows you to travel abroad and to other countries.
Great, so we hear about PCR tests, we hear about lateral flow. We run properties and shopping centres. We don't know about all the ins and outs of this. So what's the difference between the two of those?
Yes, so a PCR test is really the gold standard in COVID testing. So what PCR can do is it can pick up COVID at a really low level. So let's say someone has just contracted COVID. If you have a PCR test, you'll be able to pick it up at a really early stage before they're actually contagious with the virus, and that's really important for safety. So if we can get people at an early stage, if we can tell them to self-isolate and take them out of contact with people and keep everyone else safe.
And that's different to lateral flow, which is...
Yes, so lateral flow test is a really useful tool, but only catches the virus at a much higher level. So this is when you're really contagious with the viral, but it gets those people out of circulation. But the key thing with lateral flow is it can give results in approximately 30 minutes, which is obviously really good if you need to get a quick turnaround, especially when you're testing a lot of people. So it's a really useful tool, but PCR is the gold standard in COVID testing. So we opened 2 weeks ago, and we've already done over 1,300 tests in those weeks. So despite travel not reopening yet, there's been a really high demand for PCR COVID testing. So we opened to 2 weeks, and we have a capacity here of 384 tests per day. So we're ramping up for that towards summer, and we're waiting for that May 17th date that the government has said they may allow some travel, and test centres such as these are going to be really important for any return to travel this summer.
Excellent. So from a property owner's perspective, we will have spaces that are open or car parks that could be used for other purposes. I mean, we're talking to you guys about other locations in our portfolio. No doubt you're talking to other property owners as well about how to make best use of their space during this really difficult time.
Absolutely. So we found car parks in shopping centres such as these are really brilliant locations for our testing centres. They provide adequate space for us to be able to set this up and assemble it really quickly. As you can see here, we have a 4-lane capacity, and we just set up the testing booths and the canopy, and it's a really simple assembly. And we found that these sorts of sites and car parks are really good, and especially because they're very accessible to people who are travelling from within 45 minutes away. So it's really easy for people to access these sites.
Ollie, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. So in terms of next steps for us, that's all about testing. Let's go and have a look at a vaccination centre. So welcome to Central. This is Hammerson's shopping destination in Croydon in South London. We've come here to have a look at the vaccination centre that has opened up here recently. Now we're indoors, so of course masks on, and these are clearly going to be with us for some time through 2021. Health, hygiene, testing, vaccinations, we said that this is going to be a key feature for the rest of this year, and the way that we've gone about being able to open this, which was one of the first vaccination centres in London in a shopping centre, has been a huge amount of collaboration. Now, our retailers are of course incredibly important to us, and actually we found that we're going to talk to one of them who's actually had his vaccination in this vaccination centre. So, hi, you are Duncan, that's right?
That is right, yes.
And Duncan, which shop do you run here in Central?
101 Records, been here for just over 30 years.
101 Records, just been here for 30 years, that's fantastic. Now, Duncan, am I right in thinking you've been vaccinated in this vaccination centre?
I have, yes, just this week.
Excellent, and how was that experience for you?
It was great. The convenience, speed, organisation, absolutely perfect.
Fantastic. Now, you've worked in this shopping centre, you run your own store, that's right?
Yes, sir.
You've been here 30 years. Can you ever imagine that you'd end up having a vaccination for something like this in this centre?
Absolutely not. You used to go to a doctor or a hospital for a vaccination, not a shopping centre. So
Yeah.
it's certainly a new turn of events, definitely.
Excellent. And I imagine you're looking forward to reopening and being able to get back to selling records.
Oh, absolutely. As long as Boris keeps his promise for mid-April, then we're up and running and ready to go. And yeah, quite frankly, can't wait.
Duncan, absolutely fantastic. All the best. Good luck with reopening. Good luck with all your preparations. And I look forward to shopping soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So as we're gearing up for reopening, I thought it'd be useful to have a chat with our general manager here at Central. So this is Joe. Joe, hi.
Hi, Howard.
Thanks for your time.
No worries.
So Joe, it's been a really tough year for retail. We've had to say goodbye to some of our loved brands. You've had some changes here as well, haven't you?
We have, yeah. We were really sad to see Debenhams exit the scheme after so many years, but delighted to welcome the next outlet who have taken the space. They only opened for a short period in 2020, but it was really well received, and we can't wait to get them back open in April.
That's really good to hear. Now, we've just seen a Deliveroo rider going into Starbucks. That is not something we would have seen a year ago. What's been happening here with these guys and takeaway and deliveries?
They've said that Deliveroo and Uber Eats is taking 50% of their business at the minute. So 50%. So they're doing really, really well with that. But you know, it's a different operation for us. We need to look at how we manage their vehicles and how they're coming in and out of the centre. But we're just trying to make it as easy as we can for them.
And also, you've had a unit that's been empty for a while. That you've got this amazing new leisure operator coming in.
We've got Flip Out, who are opening one of their super centres in Central, a space that's been vacant for over 10 years. And they're fitting out now, and they'll be open in the summer, and it's going to be an absolute game changer for Croydon and very, very exciting.
And we're going to expect to see this, aren't we, for other retail properties, that actually certain space that was used for traditional retail is now going to be used for leisure. This has got an ice rink in it, I think.
It's got an ice rink, bumper cars, laser tag, all sorts of things. But yeah, it's a great example of repurposing and how we're using our spaces for something very different.
Great. Now, the vaccination centre, we are all really proud of this. And for shopping centres, this was one of the first in London to open in a shopping centre. Now, if I've got it right, this space that the vaccination centre in, that was empty for years, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was the old food court, again, empty for 10 years. Really, really lovely use of the space, and a great way to help the effort of getting the country back to some sense of normality. It's a mass vaccination centre, so it's going to be at full capacity, vaccinating up to 1,500 people a day. And we're so proud of it. You know, one of my sayings has always been, you know, we're not saving lives here, people, but actually now we are, and we're ever so proud of it.
So up to 1,500 people a day, and when are you expecting them here until?
They are here until at least September, but they have the option to extend.
Right, so I mean, we talked a bit about health, hygiene, testing, vaccinations. This is clearly going to be an important part of the rest of 2021, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And how amazing that we've got space here that we're putting to use that is going to help us get out of this pandemic, and how amazing to be part of the solution.
It's been fantastic. The team have worked so hard to deliver it, and we're, you know, like I say, we're just really proud of it, and really pleased to see it in operation.
Well, from a property owner's perspective, because this of course is for Revo, we we cannot do anything without our operations teams. So a huge thanks from us and to all of the operators out there who are getting ready to get open and to hopefully deliver some supportive retail trade for the rest of this year. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks. So you've heard about hygiene, sanitation, cleaning, testing, vaccinations. This is clearly going to be an important part of the rest of this year. We hope that all of our retail partners are managing to open successfully, smoothly, and that they trade as much as possible for the rest of 2021.
Now going across to Gemma at Landsec. Gemma is at Gunwharf Quays Retail Outlet Centre in Portsmouth, gearing up for reopening and also looking back over the learnings from the pandemic.
Hello, my name is Gemma Casey and I'm the Senior Portfolio Director for the Landsec Outlet Portfolio. And today I'm here to give you a quick sneak peek of Gunwharf Quays before reopening and tell you a bit more about the centre. Gunwharf Quays is a premium retail outlet and it sits in the historic city of Portsmouth. The site was originally developed in the old naval gun wall and is rich with heritage. It sits beautifully on the waterfront overlooking the Solent, and on a nice day from the top of the Spinnaker Tower you can see all the way to the Isle of Wight and beyond. The centre has over 90 retail outlet units, 30 bars, restaurants and cafes, a hotel, cinema, bowling alley, casino, residential offices and of course the beautiful marina. The centre really offers a fantastic day out. Non-essential retail has significantly impacted our brand partners, and although there is a turnover element within their leases, we have continued to assist our brand partners with rental support during this difficult time. We've also supported our brand partners with virtual shopping initiatives as well as marketing campaigns, and we've rolled out a ready-to-retail unit concept at all of our outlets to provide new brands opportunities to take pop-up space within our centres, as well as for our brand partners in our centres to clear excess stock. We have welcomed new brand Penhaligon's, the British luxury perfumer, as well as Stance, Pro Cook and British sailing-inspired lifestyle and fashion brand Cuba. Calvin Klein has doubled its presence with us here and taken a new double-fronted unit showcasing both CK underwear and CK jeans. As well as Radley delivering an upsize, we have seen some brilliant changes here at Gunwharf. At Landsec, keeping our guests, site teams and store staff safe has been our #1 priority, and we have made a number of significant changes to ensure this. We have increased our cleaning regimes, focusing on key touch points. We have put in place one-way flows around our centres, managed capacity and increased the floor space of the patios for our F&B partners to enable social distancing measures to be more easily adhered to. Community initiatives have never been so important than in the last 12 months, and Landsec recognises that as a significant employer in places such as this, that it is really important that we give back. We've been working with our local charity partners, and in the case of Gunwharf, this is Pompey in the community, to provide food parcels to those most significantly affected by the pandemic and have had to self-isolate. In addition, we are supporting the city with their digital enablement programme, which provides internet access to children and the elderly to connect them to the outside world in these difficult times. The last 12 months has been tough, but we cannot wait to welcome back both our brand partners and our guests on the 12th of April.
Hello, I'm Chloe Keith, Managing Director of Toolbox Marketing. With reopening Take 3 on the horizon, I'll be taking a look at how marketing can support the reopening phases in a post-pandemic world to help our spaces and places bounce back. If you read all the reports in the news and listen to conversations on social media, it's clear there's going to be a spending boom in physical spaces. People are excited. Whilst that's encouraging and positive, how are we going to maintain footfall and spend offline when the UK has become so used to shopping online from the comfort of their sofa? After lockdown 1 and 2, we saw a rise in mission-based shopping. Those venturing out were keeping visits short and sweet, dwell time was a thing of the past, but ATV was up. Post-lockdown 3, people are bored. They have money to spend, the weather's looking brighter and confidence is growing, especially in older age groups due to the vaccination drive. In CACI's report, 74% of consumers' finances have stayed the same or improved as a result of the pandemic. So what does that mean for marketing? As we all know, marketing touches all elements of the shopper journey and everything within the shopping centre environment, from leasing efforts to communicating one-way systems and everything in between. Therefore, the sharing of data between all roles and departments is critical. Marketeers over the past year have had to be flexible with their strategies and agile with their plans, and that's set to continue. It's important to clearly define the objectives for marketing efforts to ensure effective delivery to achieve the desired results. Monitoring and reviewing regularly is vital as we navigate the fundamental shifts COVID has created. Let's take a look at some key areas. 1. What will physical events look like? Gone are the days of attracting hundreds of families to see Peppa Pig or thousands of students for student lock-ins. We're assuming that events in shopping centres, for the time being, will not return to the way we're used to, because at this stage we can't be seen to be attracting lots of people, especially in an enclosed space at a set time. So how do we deliver experiential events in a post-COVID world? We have to think differently and consider what our target audiences want. If we don't know what they want, we can use our digital channels to ask them. Families can still meet Peppa Pig, but it might be virtually or in a controlled, bookable environment. And what if we ensure there was an educational element, an engaging element, and a token memory of the event? It's time to reconsider how successful previous must-have events were as we find the balance between physical and digital with omni-channel approaches. Number 2, attracting footfall. Post the April reopening boom, how do we encourage future footfall when it'll be so easy to slip back into online shopping habits? How do we create a positive customer experience? And how can those experiences be relevant and engaging? It's all about providing and highlighting reasons to visit, and each place has many, many reasons to visit that your target audiences can't get online. People are looking for social experiences. Ask yourself, what special or new reasons are there to visit my tenants? What services do we offer that you can't get online? What are the benefits of shopping local? What pop-ups could benefit my place? Are my voids going to put people off? Does bookability make my place more appealing? Are we convenient? Do our customers think we are safe to visit? Take those answers and filter them through into your marketing plans and strategy to attract footfall from existing and potential customers. It's also important to point out here that with the rise in turnover rents, footfall and experience is key. To help improve turnover, it's vital to promote your tenants and the reasons to visit to spend money with them. Point number 3, encouraging spend. Whilst it's been great to see ATVs increase post-lockdown 1 and 2, we need to continue to benefit from this post-lockdown 3, and rewarding loyalty is a great way of doing that. Simple mechanics like a gift with purchase or freebies to brighten up your customer's day will go a long way, as will personalising offers through the use of data. Creative and inspiring content will help bump up sales. It's that home bargains effect we want to capture. I only went in for one thing and I came out with... The support, shop, love local movement is gaining more momentum and is more important than ever. So ensuring all your tenants are represented on digital channels and through point of sale on site is a great way to unlock those extra treat me purchases. Talk to your tenants and extract the stories to tell. Use local influencers and talk about sustainability. Yes, the smaller, more independent tenants will require more support, but it will pay off. In a recent Deloitte survey, 57% of consumers said they would be more likely to spend money at a business that offers locally produced products once lockdown has been lifted. Number 4, communicate, communicate, communicate. There's no doubt about it, digital is here to stay. Your place's digital platforms are key to reopening and allow you to respond quickly, ensuring information is accurate. 40% of consumers want a response within 1 hour. During reopening 1 and 2, we had a 185% increase in our clients' website visits as shoppers wanted to know how safe the place was, what were the rules, and how they could shop. Messaging on digital channels should be clear and concise. Whilst we're desperate to get people back, we should not be pushy and therefore use the here for you when you're ready approach and make sure we're seen to be supportive. On average, people spend 5 hours per day on their phones, so digital must form a part of your shopper journey. It's crucial to remain top of mind, so whilst you are active, ensure you remain relevant. It is now and always has been about the community. Marketing should not be a cookie cutter approach. It should be personalised and unique to your place and your customers. Ensuring you're relevant to their lives will assist in embedding your place at the heart of the community. A Forbes article recently said, when you buy local, you're supporting your community, keeping the money where the most effective change can be seen. So supporting the local community because you care and not just to tick a CSR box is a recipe for success. Working with key stakeholders in your town or city allows limited or reduced marketing budgets to work harder and demonstrate greater ROI. It also helps cement relationships with your future shoppers. In the new normal, marketing can help to listen and understand what your community wants and needs. Marketing can then help support and tackle issues in the community with a joined-up approach, keeping people spending time and money in your place. And lastly, number 6, online and physical shopping will learn to live together. Now I call online shopping online procurement with thanks to author Sophie Kinsella. In her most recent Shopaholic book, the character Becky reflects on online ordering. Online ordering isn't really shopping, it's procuring. You procure stuff online, but you don't get the buzz of actually stepping into a shop and seeing all the gorgeous stuff, feeling it, stroking it, and being seduced by it. And that is exactly why shopping, as we once knew it, is here to stay. It will learn to live with online shopping, ordering or procurement, and vice versa. There are multiple pros and cons for both cases, but physical shopping is a hobby. It's an experience you can't get online. It stimulates your senses and will be even more enjoyable going forward with thanks to various post-pandemic changes. To conclude on the future of marketing for shopping centres and places, it is clear that shopping will never be the same again. COVID has accelerated change and prompted new habits and expectations. And for this, we need to continually adapt our marketing efforts and channels. We're all consumers, so put yourself in your customer's shoes and think about what you want to do, hear, see, feel, and experience in a post-pandemic world where we can once again shop, eat, play, and stay in a physical place, and then translate that into your marketing. So that's it from me. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in our places post the 12th of April. Fingers crossed and good luck.
As the lockdown eases and all stores are able to open across the UK, it is increasingly important that these shopping centres and places are relevant for their shoppers, their customers, and importantly for their investors as well, for the lockdown to ease. And here's to the rest of 2021 and the increasing confidence that we see in the capital markets in the UK and in retail. Thank you.
So that's it from Revo's first magazine of articles looking at reopening. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found this fresh approach insightful and interesting, and we look forward to joining you as retail reopens. Keep well. Goodbye.